Jay, let's cut to it. Why has the commercial real estate sector tolerated opaque valuations for so long?
Fund managers, brokers, even some appraisers profit in the gray zones where information is either incomplete or selectively disclosed. That's the short answer. So we're talking about like aggressive assumptions, cherry pick data. These provide support for a narrative rather than reflecting reality. And investors and limited partners are sort of left in the dark. They're either lacking the wherewithal to challenge the assumptions, or they're stuck in a system that really resists transparency. So take that situation. Now you want to layer on an asset class that's just truly illiquid by nature. You get plenty of room for gamesmanship, and an environment where risk is consistently being mispriced.
Wow, gamesmanship. Sounds like there's some creative optimism going on, or is it outright manipulation?
Well, the industry tolerates it because enough insiders profit from the lack of clarity, and the investors aren't always in a great position to force change. And yes, the narrative sometimes does drive valuations. On the one end, you have creative optimism, leaning on the best case assumptions, stretching out how you're selecting your comps and timing the analysis to meet a moment in the market where everything's just perfect. Maybe that's not technically wrong, but it does skew the picture. And then you have on the other end, there's just outright manipulation, and that would be something like knowingly suppressing unfavorable market data or structuring the valuation process to deliver a predetermined result. The line between optimism and manipulation is a blurry one, but in both cases, the agenda or the narrative wins out over like true price discovery. And what I would say is that in today's environment, more and more with the data and analytical tools that we have, savvy investors are increasingly gravitating towards platforms that embrace transparency and accountability in how they're valuing the assets.
Yeah, well, some of what you say is quite troubling, but let's go to the positive for a moment. If we could persuade everybody to mark to market tomorrow, how would that affect value conclusions?
Wow, well, the first thing I'd say is it would be a massive jolt, right? We'd have a lot of movement in one day. But look, Steve, some funds are spot on in their valuations. Others, I would even say, are conservative. But plenty of them are still selling this pie in the sky with true mark-to-market transparency. Those gaps would just be impossible to ignore. I think the real problem we have here is there's no consistent yardstick. Until investors really demand one, or a majority of investors demand one, they're sort of left guessing which values reflect reality and which are just storytelling. And we know this is happening. The return distribution for comparable commercial real estate vehicles over the past, say, 5 years, it's not a normal distribution, which you would expect to see, right? It's not the normal bell-shaped curve. It's much wider, which tells you that the numbers aren't really anchored to any kind of common standard.
So what can an investment platform do to assure its investors that it's marking to a transparent and reality-based valuation?
We always like to start with a clear valuation policy that has controls in place that prioritize consistency and transparency. And then, of course, you have to back that up by with reliance on a trusted, truly independent third-party valuation provider, so investors know that your values aren't biased. When you lean into transparency, and sort of, I like to call it honest dealing in this way, you're not just managing risk, right? Like it's something it's important to do to manage the risk, but you're also, giving investors a good reason to choose your platform over the other options that are out there.
Yeah, honest dealing, that's an elusive goal. But thanks for coming in today and sharing your experience-based insights, Jay.
My pleasure, Steve.